Anyway, thank you all so much for being here. Yeah,
Okay. I don't know how I did that, but
welcome back. Today we are going to tie everything together in the pyramid of influence, a bit of review, how to best use it in the real world. As you know, we're joined by the great David Barron. David, go ahead
no,
and take it away.
please don't say great. Just say David Barron. That'll work fine.
The average David Barron.
The functionally adequate is how I refer to myself to my wife. Uh, all right. Thank you, everybody. I'm glad you're here. What I want to encourage each of you to do is participate, not just record this and view it. As I mentioned earlier, there's a strong possibility I'm not going to permit AI recordings. I will allow this recording to go up on YouTube. You can always see it then, but it diminishes my the contribution if you're just recording it and listening to it later, or taking notes and listening to it later and transcribing. So again, I be aware of that. So what we're going to follow up on today is the pyramid of influence. Let me see if I can share the pyramid. So I'm turning my share request on. Graham, if or whoever's the host
Yep.
now, please permit that. I appreciate it. All right. So good. Thank you. So here, the pyramid of influence. We're just going to go over this for now. This is a refresher of everything that we're doing. The pyramid of influence is really the essence of how we are influenced and the essence of how we influence other people. I go from the bottom to the top. As a hypnotist, people usually come to me. Hello, Alex. Welcome. People usually come to me for changing behaviors. So looking at the pyramid of influence for influencing other people, you can start with, say, if they're paying you to help them make changes, you can start by recognizing what the changes are that they want through the behaviors they need to change. Maybe they want to quit smoking. Maybe they want to stop eating at 9 o'clock at night an entire gallon of ice cream. It could be anything. Maybe they want to quit dating the wrong people. All this follows under the source of behaviors. So once you have that, again, you start with where they're at. Then everything above that behavior is controlled by what everything that is everything above that behavior controls whatever is below it. So emotions, people don't just do behaviors for behavior's sake. They do it because there's an emotion that guides them, even though they may have a logical excuse. That's our brain working like a mammal. And our brain, even though we think we're smart and we're mammals, we have little reptilian brains that want things and we immediately go after them. So it is the emotions that guide behaviors. Now, going beyond that, above emotions are beliefs. These are the things we hold true about ourselves, things that aren't in fact facts, but simplifications of our world. And those help us create emotions, which create behaviors. And going up the pyramid, we have values. These are the things we hold most importantly. And at the very peak of that is our sense of identity. People who see themselves in a certain way, they will behave according to that in a certain way. So when you're able to change someone at the very top of the pyramid, changes take place very rapidly. And so where I want to go with this is just sort of with that as a hierarchy. And I want to welcome any questions or interruptions. So if you wish to raise a hand, you go down to the chat box down there. And I think what you can do is, yeah, there's an icon that allows you to raise your hand. Is that accurate, Joe?
Yes, if they
Is
go
that
down
how it works?
to React, it's kind of bottom center.
Okay.
And if you,
And yeah, if you click on that, it'll give you an option to raise your hand, and a chime will raise, and I will unmute you, and you can ask your question or share your observation. So let's look at this in a couple of different ways. If you are a person who is helping people as a hypnotist, as a coach, you want to utilize the pyramid of influence. So that's one factor. If you want to persuade people, sell them, maybe make changes in their life covertly, you can also use the pyramid of influence. But one of the bigger values that I always want you to consider very heavily is if you want to help make changes in your own life, in how you see yourself, in your motivations, in becoming a better person and overcoming personal obstacles. It's always a great place to start. In fact, what I want to do for most of this is talk about that in this context, in changing yourself. So one of the best ways, if the first place you have to start is whatever you're dissatisfied with. Maybe you're not as confident as you want to be. Maybe you're anxious than is comfortable. Maybe you're addicted to gambling, which I've worked with people. But if you see a change that is not serving you, that's where you start. You start with the area where you're dissatisfied with. And I usually start with yourself, with your sense of identity. So at the very top of the pyramid, if you're working on yourself. First of all, consider how you see yourself as is, warts and all, with all of the painful blemishes and inconsistencies of your life. You start with exactly where you're at and how you see yourself. And so you're going to have to deal with a little bit of embarrassment, perhaps a little bit of shame, maybe a little bit of guilt. It's all going to be there. Put that aside and start by thinking, what would the ideal version of yourself be? And you can think of it sort of as blue sky thinking, or you can think of it in terms of, building yourself a version of you that you would admire, that you would look up to. You can take resources from people in history, from people that you admire, Benjamin Franklin, or Marcus Aurelius, or anyone who has qualities that you admire. But you could start with that as a model and start to decide how you would want to change yourself, how you would want to see yourself. An interesting thing happened. I was working with a client today whose son is stopping marijuana. And what he did was he had to move out of the house. He decided to move out of the house, find a new location. And what we started to talk about is when we start making moves and change, create this opportunity on how we want to present ourselves to the world. What is this identity we want to begin to build around us? So when you start making changes in moving from one location to another, which I've done, I start thinking about, okay, I don't have to be the person I was back in this place before. What can I do now? What kind of person can I be then? And that will begin the understanding of this new version of yourself that you're creating. The next step is, okay, if you have this idea of how this person is, it should become clear or clearer. What are the values that motivate this person you're becoming? Once again, you're going to have to do a comparison. If you have a clear idea of what the values are, say this person is persuasive, confident, influential, unshakable, then you have to compare that to yourself. If this version of yourself is unshakable, do you cower when you're confronted with a mistake you made? That's a complete, they're in conflict. So start thinking of the values you want to take on. Once the values are, once you have a clearer, it doesn't have to be a perfectly clear understanding of the values. But once you have a set of values that become important, your next step is to think about how you want to see the world with those values, with that sense of identity. There you're creating the beliefs, particularly beliefs about yourself, beliefs about your ability, beliefs about your adaptability. Pretty easily from that point on, if you start from the top and you work downward, you're going to develop the emotions that guide you, and then the behaviors that you're going to demonstrate. This may be a little weird at first, which I think is probably a good idea to move it to another city before you do it. That's impractical, I totally realize. But if you've ever moved from one city to another by yourself, or if you remember, and you were a little kid and your family moved you from one school to another, you're in an entirely new social group that doesn't know who you are, and you get to be a person, a version of yourself that no one else would contradict. So that's the opportunity of doing this, doing that every day. And as we go through this, the questions you want to ask are, who am I? What is the person I want to be? That will start to form your identity. The next question is, what will be the things that are most important to me? Those are the values that you have. With that, you decide, what will be the beliefs that I have about myself, about others, and about the world? And I want you to seriously consider it, since you're thinking about other people. It's generally a good idea to treat them, to hold them in some high regard, that they're not broken. Unfortunately, I have a lot of people who I work with who talk about other people as if they're broken. They talk about the world as if it's falling apart. And that does not serve them. It doesn't make change easy. So think about the beliefs you have about the world that would be helpful and beneficial. From that, you can start to develop the emotions and then the behaviors. Now, as you're doing all of this, you can also start at the bottom, which is, what are the behaviors you want? Do you want to regularly exercise at the gym or run or whatever exercise is important? You want to develop behaviors that are filled with healthy food consumption, and start with that. All of this pyramid of influence has strength and matters, because when you want to do this, this format becomes a structure for you to sort of do this in an exploration and an adventure. And you don't have to be perfect by any means. In fact, this is something you should work at consistently over a long period of time. Now, so here I'm talking about using this to influence yourself. And I firmly believe that's the most important part. However, you can use this to influence other people. One of the better ways of influencing other people is to very covertly influence their sense of identity. And you do this by finding out what they do not like, or a person they do not like, or a type of individual they don't like. And you associate all the qualities that you don't want them to have with that other person. So for a good example, there are people out there who buy these monstrous metallic stainless steel square trucks powered by electricity that look like a giant penis enhancer. That's all they look like. And you can tell from people who drive those things that they're not going to listen to anyone else. They are making decisions without any concern for the people around them. You're not that type of person. You better look at their truck or their vehicle before you say this, but yeah, that's a general, you're not that type of person. The thing I notice about those types of people is they are not open to any sort of objective criticism. But then there's other people, you and me, and we know that it may not feel very good, but we know how important that objective criticism really is. And so I'm really glad that you're welcome to that we're talking in this sort of openness. In that little conversation right there, I was able to link a bad quality that this person would not like to someone they don't like, and create a good quality, a sense of openness and a willing to accept criticism. And we did it at the level of their identity, of how they see themselves. So that's one way of doing it. And be creative how you do this. There are lots of really good ways of doing it. So once you start to shift their identity, it's a lot easier to guide them through talking about the values they think that are important to them. And when you start dealing with values, it's all very simple. You just ask them what's important. What's important to you in this context? What's important to you in life? What do you like about this area where I'm trying to influence you? What do you like about the type of shoes that you wear? And in that context, they'll tell you what's important. And often all you have to do is listen. You don't have to do much more elicitation than that. You always can, but usually if it's sincere and you've got that connection with somebody, they will tell you what is important. Those are often enough to influence somebody. Influencing them in the sense of identity so you can support them and make them feel like a person that you want them to be. I know someone who worked with people who brought other people into adult films. And they would start by changing their sense of identity. They would start by saying, well, first of all, they do very subtle things like let them do something that's sort of out of their normal character, like encouraging them to swear or cuss or say a curse word. And that would start to bring some flexibility in their behavior. Then they would sort of focus on their identity and associate adventurousness, risk-taking with positive traits, and have that person start to recognize, yeah, they do have this risk-taking behavior, that they are adventurous. And very slowly, they would introduce them into adult films, which is wild. I would never considered it. And I think if you go back to the recordings that are on YouTube about the very first recordings about how to influence people through creating very positive emotions and linking them to very positive behaviors, that is even more powerful. We're talking about here emotions and behaviors, so near the lower end of the pyramid. That's even more powerful than finding negative associations associated with bad behaviors. It's you could if you get people feeling so good and so good about themselves, tears are coming down their face, and you link that to the behavior that they want to have, that has been hard for them, it becomes very, very easy. Okay, so I'm gonna open this up. Anyone have any questions or observations?
Dave, sorry, Graham, go ahead.
I was just coughing my throat because I've had a bit of a cough this week. But one thought that did occur to us is, would it be recommended to do this, say, with a trusted colleague or if you're a member of a professional body during a supervision session as an exercise to do with them.
Yeah. You do it intentionally or covertly?
Do it intentionally. So because obviously in UK with the qualification doing, I can register with professional governing bodies, and one of the things they
Oh, yeah.
insist on is having supervision, where you meet with a more experienced colleague and stuff like that to discuss cases.
Oh, yeah.
And do all the
Yeah.
professional development things. And I was thinking, this could be a good exercise to do during a supervision session, to make sure that you yourself are particularly well
Yeah.
grounded. Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And do it not so much as start off doing it much more as an exploration than an effort to persuade them. Um, I was with a friend once, and I had this strange idea in my head that I was going to make him want to go to church. That would never be a thought in my mind for anyone else. But I thought, I wonder if I could make him want to go to church. And I just started talking about, uh, you know, spiritual values, things that are important to him, church. Does he remember going to church and things like this? And sure enough, that next Sunday, he got his good suit on and he went to church. I thought, okay, this is very interesting. Uh, but yeah, doing something like that more as an experiment to see how much you can discover their sense of self and identity, find out their values and their belief systems. Very important. And then if you do it, if you influence them, do it only as an experiment. It's not, just see what you can. Take the information, take the information on their values and their sense of self, and lightheartedly see how far you can influence them in a certain direction. And I think you would be surprised. You don't have to do very much to get a good response.
Yeah, because what I was also thinking of as well is, as you said about, going through this exercise on your own, quite often, when you get given a test to do and you're allowed to, and you're left alone, you want to sneak some answers. So I'm thinking if you was to do this with a colleague, they can be the one asking you the questions so that you can't put down your pet answers and say, yes, I'm okay. Whereas they'll be able to hold you more accountable to it.
Yeah. I've known of a teacher, for example, before giving a test, he would start to hand it out, but then he would just stop and he'd just say, I know there's some of you who are tempted about cheating. I know it because I've been doing this for so darn long. And then he'd sit there like it was almost brokenhearted, and he'd say, let me tell you why not to do it. And then he'd talk about, you're not benefiting yourself now or in the future. And so I'm just gonna ask you, don't cheat. And he would create this sense of guilt in anyone who thought about it. And he'd hand out the test, and it just was so much more persuasive. So yeah, that could certainly work. Is there anything else?
No, that was the main one that I had. Yeah.
Okay, good enough. Joe, did you have something you want to say?
Yes. When you first started talking about using it on yourself, and recommending, of course, in jest, going someplace and becoming that, would you recommend the model be, do, have, be that person, and then, like, as a hypnotist, we talked about in previous ones, it's like you became that vision of a hypnotist. You even have certain clothes you wear, and then okay, now you're that person. You do hypnosis, and you have that life.
That is, yes, I recommend that is always a very good experiment to try on. Is see how much you can be this version of yourself. It brings something I was going to talk to at the near the end, but it's soon enough we can do it. There's a quote that I love. I try to live by it, which is the author of The Little Prince wrote it. He was a French author and an aviationist and things like that. And he said, perfection is achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing more to take away. Now, What you described, Joe, is you're putting on a facade, which I totally agree. And you can do it, and it's very useful, and you can learn a lot about it. And I'd recommend you try it. But there's also a realization that everything that you think you don't have is a result of some sort of hesitation for you not having it. And if you were to drop that hesitation, you'd be removing an obstacle and removing something that is going to expose a slightly something more perfect. I hope this makes sense. There's a quote. Well, it's not a quote. Let me see. Let me find it here. There we go. So with this, okay, I'm sorry, bear with me. When you're doing this and you're doing it on yourself, it's a first of all, I encourage you to try it. But there's something beyond the peak of the pyramid, and it's where there's no pyramid at all. Everything that we are doing to make our lives better is a result of things that have happened since our birth that we've acquired that has created an obstacle for us. It could be a sense of shame, a feeling of guilt, a sense that we're not enough, or we don't have permission to do something. All of these are obstacles for us. And those are the things that you need to remove yourself from in order to expose that perfection that's there. Once you're able to do that, all of these things, these tools you're learning for influence, they don't become something that you do. They become something that you are. And it has an incredibly much more powerful and organic sort of influence to it. So again, the quote, and I say it a lot in my mind, I was thinking about getting a tattoo of it. It says, perfection is achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing more to take away. If you're doing any sort of real improvement, it's not about building a facade. It's about becoming real from the inside out and learning skills that build upon that. Alex, did you have someone unmute Alex? Because I see his hand is up. There we go.
Okay, I've got it. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Brand new microphone, so I think I'm always worrying about stuff like that. I was using some of the teachings today, earlier on, in an interview technique lecture. Now, the thing about the interview technique lecture was that an awful lot of it was sort of standard techniques for answering the standard questions that interviewers would ask, and about overcoming the obstacles that employers would place in front of you and stuff like that. But among the other things that I did was a little bit of work on myself. And one of the things that I worked on was the value that I wanted to bring to that meeting. The value being that it's not about the employer setting aside money and resources for that employee to work for them. It's about the employee sacrificing a bit of their time in order to gain financial reward and using the skills that they've known and the experiences that they have to benefit the employer. So basically the employer has to be the one who is not exactly holding out a position for somebody else to take, but the employer is the person who really needs to be answering the questions about, would it be worth my time to work for them? And the techniques that I used were completely unconventional, and they really weren't prepared for this level of thinking. So it was like,
Oh, wow.
it was like bringing an AR-15 to a knife fight. Honestly, it was seriously. I just brought in this thing, and it literally felt like me bringing in heavy weapons into a a Derringer fight or something like that. That's how it felt. Basically, it was on this
Let
level
me ask
here, and then on that level there.
so the question. So I'm gonna want to ask some questions to clarify. It sounds like you're helping the person applying for the job change the frame in terms of I'm not applying for a job. What I'm trying to do is how would you phrase it? What's the frame that you're trying to set in this person's mind?
The company representative
Mhm.
was basically being put in the frame by me, the candidate, and the candidate's position was, you sell me why I should be spending my time working for
Right.
you, because bringing the
Right.
skills is what I'm good at. This is what I've got. These are the skills I've got. And quite clearly, by the research I've done, you're desperately needing those people with those skills. I'm the person. I've got the skills.
Okay.
Show me why I should work for you.
Right. Very good. Doing it in a respectful way, of course. But yeah, I like how you did that. That was a very good changing of the frame for that. That was perfect. All right. All right. Anybody else?
One more thought,
Yes.
David. If you're going to use this for someone, do you want to meet them where they're at? Just for example, let's say I sell software or specifically microphones. When I just heard
Mhm.
Alex say, can you hear me? That's something I'm always worried about. He is on the thought emotions level. So I would probably go, a lot of us do worry about these things, and it's very frustrating. And wouldn't you like to see yourself and then take them up to identity when I'm selling them the best
Right.
option we have? Do you agree at meeting someone at the level where they are at that moment and taking them to identity, or do you just hit them with identity right away?
You can hit them with identity right away, but what you'll find if you listen and if you train yourself, people will tell you. People will just reveal in their words what's important to them. You know, people will tell you if they're motivated more by admiration or by making an impact with other people or with a sense of appreciation. They will sort of tell you that in their words. And again, it's just quality. It's just not something you had to train your ear for, but it's always good to start with what you recognize because that's where they are at right there.
Okay, thank
However,
you.
if you're new to this, if you haven't done it, first of all, listen. Really try and train your ear to see and hear and sense where they're coming from. And if all else fails, start with their sense of identity, start with talking about how they see themselves, and find out what they value most in the people they admire so that you can compare them to the people that they admire, help them influence their sense of identity. But they'll also talk about the things that are most important to them. By simply asking, what do you like about in this particular context of thing? Then you're dealing with values. And when they start telling you things like, I can't do this, or that's impossible, or that's not me, you're dealing also with beliefs. So it is something you have to train yourself for. And it's a worthy experiment to learn these skills and go from there. I hope that answers your question.
Very well, thank you.
Okay. So anyone else?
Yeah, just one thought I just had. When you mentioned earlier about above the pyramid,
Mhm.
are you referring to there's nothing above that, or is there something else that we've got to touch upon just yet or explore deeper in further sessions? It's quite intriguing.
Above the pyramid is,
Mm.
you have to understand the pyramid is a facade. It's something you build on
Mhm.
to give you more strength and influence.
Mhm.
However, we're born with that strength and influence. And I'll just read what I wrote here, and it's in the document, Pyramid of Influence. The pyramid of influence represents the layers of things we've acquired since birth. All that's in the pyramid, behaviors, emotions, values, and our sense of identity, are fronts that we present to the world. And we do that because at some time in our early lives, we were hurt, and putting on these facades became our protection. This isn't who you really are. This isn't you. Well, no, this isn't just you. It's me, it's everyone. This is everyone you deal with. From the smiling guy who welcomes everybody, to the mean girl, to the bully, to the bodybuilder, all of them are both hiding lifelong injuries and acting as if everything's well. The effort it takes to do this is exhausting, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's no judgment or insight because you're in fact one of them. You would be a fool to judge someone with this truth. So what's beyond the level of the pyramid of influence? What's beyond is a world where somewhere back in your origin, before you had to protect yourself from hurt, from judgment, from lack of affection, then you were alive and pure and open to every part of the experience. What would happen if you invited that part of you to play in this game of influence? And my first thought is that you might deny that any of this is true, that you are building a better version of yourself. But the hurt child is still there and protecting itself and working to find attention. You might feel angry that you forgot what a joy it was to just live. So you double down on study, you practice and learn the skills that will fill the emptiness. Then you cry to realize again that you're all lost. Your very last and best decision is to accept the fear, the loss, the wonder, and the joy that's all part of this life. Then keep learning the skill of influence. Perfection isn't achieved. Perfection is achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing more to take away. Did that answer your question?
It provides a bit more insight into it, with the idea that, as you said, it's a front.
Yeah.
Is it like also hints at, like, some of the metaphysical aspects and the spiritual aspects, particularly with Buddhism and all that sort of thing, about the perfect being sort of thing? Because
it can. It can. It mostly hints to the fact that everything we do to protect ourselves is a result of something that happened to us in our childhood, and that's even a narcissist. As much as you hate the narcissist, that's them. That's an injured child somewhere. Once you see it, you can't really unsee it. It can feel somewhat spiritual, and if it fits better for you to see it that way, I would accept it. But it's not something
I was thinking more for clients, how they would interpret it,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because they might say, like, well, we're doing all this, but, like, what's all the big thing behind it? Because there's always that client who's always on that search for the deeper meaning and the deeper truth.
Yeah, well, I would like to talk about it, but I also have to ponder the whole thing a lot more as well. Any other questions here? Okay, so this is what's going to happen. It will be a day or so before this is up and recorded on YouTube for you to listen to. And next week, I'm going to talk about Kubler-Ross's, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and the 5 stages of grief and how that can be used for influence. It's not going to be a long one, but it's really important and it provides a lot of insight. So let's get together next week, this same time. Any last questions, observations, comments? All right. Joe, I'm going to let you sign off.
Okay. Everyone, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed this topic. It's one we may have to revisit from time to time because there is so much value in it. In the meantime, before next week, feel free to email any questions you may have. And again, thank you for being here. David, since they're here,
Great.
that means they are.
That means you had to sacrifice to be here. And because you're here, you're not somewhere else. So thank you for making
you,
that
David.
sacrifice. We will talk next week.
Look forward to it, David. Thanks very much.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.